In fiction, there are many variants of heroism. You have vengeful heroes like Batman or idealistic heroes like Superman. But from what I can gather, those aren't people's favorites. I mean, yes, many will say that Batman or Superman are their favorites, and more time Batman will most likely be their favorite out of the two. For the majority of the comic book fan base, or just fans of heroic characters in general, we do decide to lean towards heroic heroes as well we can relate to them. So as you can tell by the title of thumbnail, in this video I'm going to be exploring the beauty of realistic heroes. So strap in, because I'm going to get real in depth with this video. But if you guys enjoy content like this, you know what to do. Hit that like button and subscribe, as I do post content like this regularly, and to be honest, it's a win-win. You guys show me love and support, and I give it back to you in the form of videos. Whether it's manga, comics, or just fiction in general, in due time I plan on covering it, so be there when I go there. But I feel like I rambled enough. So why don't I jump straight into the video and show you guys the beauty of realistic heroes. Now previously on the channel I did cover heroism as a whole, but in that video I only delved into Spider-Man, and to be honest I only covered one scenario of him to obviously portray his version of heroism. And although that's good and all, I feel like it would be better for me to showcase his version of heroism in this video, as he'll be paired up alongside Mark and Deku, and even though these three do symbolize realistic heroism, they do go about it in a different light. There are many things that these guys share, but there are also many things that they have different. For instance, how they all got their powers, all their inspirations, or just idols in general. All of these things are different while they do share a lot of similarities, and so that is why I wanted to make this video and still include Spider-Man. So how about I start this with their base character, and their base covers who they idolize and how they got their powers. Now for Mark and Midoriya, it's pretty easy to find out who their inspirations were and who they were looking up to their whole entire lives. While Mark had Omni-Man, Midoriya had All Might. And you can easily see how they are influenced by them and just how they go about things when they first discover and get their powers. This is where they differentiate from Peter, because Peter got his inspirations and everything that he does from his uncle, but then again he was also inspired by Captain America. And the difference between Peter's heroic idol and the other two is pretty different as well, as Captain America isn't seen as the pinnacle of power inside of Marvel. I mean, when you have a god from Norse mythology walking around and a green gamma monster that just roams around and starts screaming everywhere, Captain America can't be seen as the strongest, while Omni-Man and All Might, when they were at the peak of their powers, they were uncontested and nobody dared to test them, even till their last appearances as these heroic figures for everybody to see. But what made Cap stand at the top alongside the god from Norse mythology and the green gamma monster was his ideals and what he stands for. That is what made him a Goliath, and along with the respect that everybody had for him, it was like he was one of the strongest, or was the strongest. And one thing that these idealistic heroes hold is respect. Since everybody knows that they are the peak of power, or they are the peak of what they are meant to be as a person, people naturally respect them, and the power they hold may even stretch far beyond the power they actually have. And so in comes these three teenagers who look up to these people, and immediately they try to put themselves on that pedestal and try to surpass the legacies that their predecessors have left behind. For each of them is different, and I would like to say that Mark and Deku in this aspect are also very similar as well. Mark and Deku share All Might and Omni-Man's power. It's no different. What makes it even worse for the two is the fact that both of them are technically meant to be stronger than their predecessors. But what all links them back up is the growing pains of them trying to fill the shoes of their predecessors. These three have to go through grueling challenges, and even though they do get advice from their predecessors, it isn't to the level to where they can immediately figure out their situations. We see this more for Deku and Mark, as Mark and Deku are put up against Omni-Man and All Might. In My Hero, there is a massive thing of All Might literally being this perfect guy that never really had to just figure it out. He kind of just knew what he had to do, and you can even bring it down to just how big they are. All Might was a 6'5" teenager who instantly acclimated to One For All, while Deku was 5'5", scrawny, and even after 10 months of training, couldn't even use the power. For Omni-Man and Mark, although it's similar, it's also different at the exact same time, as on Earth, Omni-Man believed that, well, Mark should technically just be above everyone naturally as he's a Viltrumite, and that's when he obviously lashed out on him. He was saying how he's so weak, Mark should be stronger. And one thing I do want to point out, I'm not saying that All Might, Omni-Man or Cap never had to struggle, definitely not. These three did have to struggle, and we do know that, since All Might lost Nana and he had to obviously train vigorously to still obviously be that #1 hero, and Omni-Man, well, he had to go through Viltrumite training. That's probably one of the most grueling trainings you'll ever see. And Cap, we all know what he had to go through before he got the Super Soldier Serum. So I'm not saying that they never had to go through anything, but to the extent that these three had to go through, it's like night and day. And I do want to add that Cap is probably the closest to them, as out of All Might and Omni-Man, he's definitely the most realistic. But when he does get his powers, it seems like he's just on another plane of existence when you compare him to obviously Spider-Man, Deku and Invincible. The reason I know this is because when they all got their powers, the three that were clumsy were Deku, Invincible and Spider-Man. When they first got their powers as teens, they were still trying to figure things out and had to start from the bottom. When Steve took the Super Soldier Serum, when he came out as Captain America, he was on the front lines and was doing everything. He was getting it down. He made a few slips, but I mean, shit, he was fine. Or Peter, he would make a lot of mistakes and he would have to think back on what Uncle Ben told him countless times. With Deku, we quite literally saw him break his bones in damn near every fight until halfway through season 2, and then even then, against Muscular, he then had to break even more of his bones, and that trend would only continue, as if he really wanted to save the day, he had to use the power of All Might. And with Mark, he's a baby Viltrumite that was thrown in there with grown adults. As you can see, even though all of them know what they need to do, they still struggle, since that is realistic. They don't immediately acclimate to what they need to do. No, it takes them time and they need advice. They need to constantly go back and rely on other people in many of their situations. No, all throughout the video I've said, oh, Peter does this differently, or Mark does this differently, or Deku does this a little bit differently. But that's the whole point of them being different realistic heroes. All three of them have their own little ways of being a realistic hero. And another thing that you do need to take into consideration is, as I said before, how they got their powers. Peter was by pure chance. Deku was because he showcased that he can be a hero. And Mark, he was just born to be a hero. How they end their stories is very similar to how they started. While there have been a few endings for Spider-Man, Spider-Man life story is probably my favorite, as he passes mantle onto Miles once he dies. Once Deku loses One for All, what does he do? He decides to become a teacher and teaches the next generation. And at the end of Mark's time, he decides to bring peace to the universe, as the Viltrumites have done a lot, and so he wants to make up for it. So as we can see, from what they've gained throughout the years, they decide to pass along and try to teach it to the next generation, so they can be just like them or even better. Way how you know these guys at their core are all the exact same is how they respond to situations where their family and friends are put in danger. And when you see the way they all react, it's like they all go into this exact same defense mechanism that I love. Immediately, all three of them will take on the responsibility by themselves and be like, I need to deal with this by myself. And they will do it until they're at their breaking point, and that is when the people around them will come in and help. And that is a difference between them and the idealistic heroes. The idealistic heroes can do that and they'll get out of the situation, but these guys, they can't. They need help. It's not realistic to take on an empire by yourself, nor is it realistic to take on somebody with multiple powers that can even steal yours and one-shot you. It's certainly not realistic for you to take on your entire rogues gallery by yourself. At points you do need a break, or you just need help in some sort of way. In the end, that is what all three of them get, and that is what they need, since in reality nobody can do that, and that is where we come in as people and can relate to them. As I said, when they were all pushed to their breaking point, they had people there for them. When Deku was going around trying to find Shigaraki, who was there for him? his classmates. When Mark tried to take on Conquest all by himself, he had 2 people come in to save him because he needed it. And for Peter, when he's in a real bad mood, who does he have there? He has MJ. One thing that I haven't mentioned yet, or I may have and just glossed over, is how they were teens when they got their powers and how they need to navigate life while having their powers and obviously balancing their hero life. And this is where Mark and Peter match up. They have girl problems, they have high school problems, they have having to keep their secret identity a secret. And aside from the secret identity thing, those are things that we do need to look out for. Now, seeing Mark and Peter having problems with Gwen, MJ, Amber and Eve is very human and stuff that we will get on a regular basis. Trying to balance a relationship while going to school, trying to obviously see each other while you got things to do, and in their cases, they've got to go out there and be heroes. They don't have time to leisure around and just think about things that we all think about on a regular day, but they will still do, because at the end of the day, they're just regular people with powers and responsibilities greater than us. And that is truly the beauty of these characters. When you put them up against their idealistic idols, they come up short in a few aspects. Although having Deku, Mark, or even Spider-Man there to lead you into battle is kind of cool, you would rather have it from All Might, Omni-Man, and especially Captain America, since they are people that are bona fide and are extremely experienced and people you just naturally look up to, since they are put on this pedestal that you feel like you just can't reach, but either way, you may try grabbing it. On the flip side, if you really wanted to go to them for advice, something minor, you'd rather go to somebody like Deku, Mark, or Peter, because they're more down to earth and you know you may get a genuine real answer from them. And that's not to say that Steve, All Might, or Omni-Man can't give you that. They definitely could, but their answer may be a lot more blunt and just straightforward compared to Peter, Midoriya and Mark, as their journey is far more realistic, meaning that you can ask for their advice and they will give you better advice than the others. You can even say that they're stronger at the end of the day. Deku, Mark and Spider-Man, when they're at the peak of their powers, are definitely stronger than their predecessors, but either way, they're still somehow viewed in a weaker light than them, and that's mainly due to their presence. Aside from their journeys, what really sets apart these guys from being idealistic is just their presence and their ideals. And I think that is why a lot more people favor these guys, as yes, the big cool guys are fun and everything, but we'd rather relate to somebody and have somebody with a chiller aura, somebody that we can actually relate to. You feel like you could, if you saw them, have a conversation with them and you wouldn't just be enamored by their presence. I feel like that's somebody that we all tend to just prefer more. This could be talked about in many things in real life. For instance, in sports, when you see your favorite athlete talk out a lot more, you feel more in touch with them, meaning you're going to like them a lot more. But when you see an athlete that never talks, you will say, oh yeah, no, I like that athlete. He's probably one of my favorites, but I don't really know anything about him. You only hear stories about him and he may talk here or there, but he's just unobtainable. That's why a lot of people have loved that in recent years, a lot more athletes and people of just high caliber are starting to just interact with their fan base, just be more proactive, since when you know somebody a lot more, you tend to like them a lot more. And the closest thing that we do have to heroes in this world, or I'd say realistic heroes, are athletes. As kids, we all looked up to at least one athlete that we wanted to be. We all used to emulate them, and then when we got to actually play the sport that they played, we tried to do all of their moves and things until we realized that, wait, hold on, we can be our own person. And that is where we can then relate to people like Spider-Man, Deku, Mark, and all these other realistic heroes, because we know how it feels. When we go out there and try and emulate our idols' moves and whatnot, we're like, okay, yeah, maybe we can do it, but I feel like I want to get my own style. And that is where those three come in, and that is where we can definitely relate. Especially with athletes being able to struggle with many different things, with them trying to juggle their personal life and them obviously playing their sport and whatnot, or just doing their sport in general. That's why I'll draw a comparison, and that is why I'm giving it to you guys so you guys understand it a lot more. And that is the real beauty of realistic heroism. As you've seen me do throughout the video, I've compared these three, and in different aspects these three may vary, but at the end they still embody realistic heroism. That is why we love them. We love these realistic heroes because they are people that we can relate to, and when we see them go through their hardships, we know that in the end they're gonna get through it. Why? Because they embody humanity and our will to never give up. And along with that, we also share the exact same thoughts that they go through when they're going through their hardships, and so when we see them get out of it, it then gives us inspiration. And I feel like the message that a lot of people don't get when they're reading these stories from these realistic heroes, and especially these three, I feel like the message is just to be your own person, and just to know that even though you're striving for that perfection, know that you can reach there and even surpass it while being yourself. So with that being said, you guys have reached the end of the video. I didn't want to ramble on a little bit more, but I have a massive project in the works that I can't wait to get out to you guys. So yeah, I'm gonna keep it here. I love you all. If you guys want more videos like this, you know what to do. After the video that I've got in the works comes out, I'll then be a lot more lenient, and I think I will make a lot more of these breakdown videos. I will make the villain video soon. Don't worry, that is coming. But yeah, there were a lot of things that I didn't want to cover in this video, but I feel like I want to save it for another video I have planned. That does tie into heroism a little bit. It also does tie into villainy and stuff, so yeah. But that is the end. Anyway, thank you guys for all the support. I love you all. I shall see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.